Hi, math is hard and music is fun. If you want to prove, we can try to compare. Let's meet a team. Bunny, 1. Boo, 2. Criminal Mouse, 3. And I kinda want to sleep already. Now let's check out the music. Checkmate number files. So let me ask you this. If very few people can genuinely enjoy counting, then why there are so many stats and counting tasks in pretty much any RPG game? Today we'll investigate how to get rid of some in-game math, and we will show how to really implement music as a core of the game. We'll not discuss ambience today, this is something that we're gonna cover in the future. Today we will discuss specifically how music is implemented as an element of a gameplay. Let's get into the details of how we really marry the music with the gameplay. Step 1 is to figure out what are those things that involve math in any RPG. If we open any RPG game, we'll have a damage range from and to. We'll have skills or stat bonuses that essentially modify those values from and to. We'll have different enhancements or environmental effects that can target specific vulnerabilities. So here some different dimension comes in, because before we really dealt with from and to damage, and now with more modifiers to certain behaviors, which kind of interesting and introduce complexity, but it's even harder to count. Additionally, we have different boosts or temporary consumables, which may not be a part of the character, but may be introduced absolutely temporarily. This would be your potions, etc. And lastly, the weapon conditions are fairly normal, so you have a new shiny weapons, and over time it deteriorates and either need fixing or gonna break down or lose its efficiency. All these things, they really bring depth into the game and allow you to have a diversity, but it's also kind of confusing as hell, and you have to commit a lot of options to memory, and by the end of the day, you will have a spreadsheet with the answers, which option is absolutely the best one. This is something that we want to avoid. What we do want to do is to strike some sort of a balance where the player can actually explore and have some sort of complexity without the necessity to count all the time. So how to make things more fun? We take the weapons and completely get rid of any damage information that we present to the player. Just take it and throw it all the way up to Uranus. Why? Because it forces us to be more creative with it. As an example, we can use the visual cues instead of the damage. Here's a stick. Here's a stick with leaves. Which one hurts more? Oh, this one is glowing. Is this one the best? And we can ask these questions, or we can present it to the player. We can bait the player. For example, the shiny one may be the worst one, but it would look the best. So we can have some sort of a baiting type of a shop owners that will sell us something very expensive and very useless, potentially, depending how our relationship doing or how much player really knows about the game. So right here, we introduce a little bit of a complexity, and we just remove the damage, and things already start to shaping up a little bit more interesting. You may ask me, where's the music coming? And don't worry, we're gonna get there soon. For now, we need to really figure out what are those main principles of the game, and that will guide everything else that's gonna happen in the future. One principle here is really to follow very few distinct choices. Because if we want those choices of different weapons or types to be very different between each other, we cannot have too many of them. Because in usual RPG game, we can really have huge diversity of the weapons, because it's essentially a little bit of a damage difference and a little bit of a range difference, and sometimes different animation based on the type. But mostly weapons are very similar. So we want to have very few types, maybe maximum 3 or 4, but they will be massively different to play with, or maybe they will be limited to the certain characters. We'll play with that, but I think that more distinctive choice that can be very visually separated would be much better than showing the damage from and to. One of the centerpieces of any RPG game is how you deal with enemy engagement. Music has to be catchy and booming, Imagine having a boss battle, or regular battle, or maybe even no battle at all. It should be very clear where we are from the sound alone. But the fact that music comes out from nowhere and does not really belong to the world is kind of a bummer. Well, maybe not really a bummer, but it bugs me. I mean, it is an RPG game, so you have a character and you're supposed to roleplay, right? So something is happening in his head. So does character can hear this music? Can other characters can hear it? Like, do all the characters can hear the same thing? It does not make sense. We need to solve this one. I want my world to have the music really built into the world itself. So this means that music comes out from the environment or something in the world really producing those sounds. This way everybody is on the same page, so at least all the characters can hear the same thing and you understand why they're doing this. This brings us to the main question: how can we make the music belong to the world? And there are many ways to go about things here. We have the trees, we have the grass, we have a whole bunch of nature things that can produce the wild range of sounds that can be quite musical. I mean, guitar is essentially a piece of wood and string can be replaced with something like a hair. So you can understand that natural things can produce sounds. Also, we can have some sort of a spirit or ghost-like characters that essentially rise up and start singing or playing music. That would be the more straightforward way to deal with it, or maybe they gonna be stimulating some sort of a wooden critters that will essentially sing songs with human voices. We'll see what's the best way to play with that. So the idea is, number one, part of a nature, trees and grass, etc. Number two would be different characters and potentially non-playable characters that are singing. Maybe we will have the dedicated type of a character that really gonna be handling the music as opposed to the fights, for example. So in the fights, you can have the dedicated type of character that really is about rhythm and music, etc. And this gives everybody else bonuses similar to what magic gives. And lastly, my world does have the concept of automation monkey, so maybe we can play with that in terms of, hey, if you organize those monkeys that are essentially computers in a certain ways, they can do some sort of a logic, and this can improve things as well. But this is the most confusing concept, so I'm not sure if I can go there. I like all those ideas, but they're really about the source of the music. And this is not the only thing that we can really do about it. We also can change how intense the music sounds, and we can shift between the musical styles. As you can understand, the perception would be changed a lot. So for example, like la 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 la, some sort of a calm music would not really fit in sort of an intense moment where you really need to make person understand that something is going on. And for that reason, we will need to essentially implement some sort of a sliders where we can increase or decrease intensity of any song on cue, because the player action will affect the intensity of the songs, and this how the player is gonna know that he's doing very good, because everything sounds just really intense. And we can show this instead of the damage output, and I think it's much more interesting, and it gives you much more creative feedback that you can play with, and it also gives players a much more interesting feel. So I think we're gonna go there. No damage information is presented, and you really don't really know how far you are from winning or losing, but you have a good feeling because the music is booming or not booming or showing you that you're about to die. Not sure. We will probably gonna have to show players something, at least own health or some sort of a bar, but it will be estimations. It will not be exact science where the players will be able to calculate exactly what they need to do. And since we mentioned the different intensity of the music, let's get some example. So let's put in some simple music loop together and see how that works. First, we have the music entry. So the few instruments starts playing from no music to a little bit of music, a bit relaxed drum loop. As we add more and more of an instruments, we can hear the loop sounds is more interesting. Plus, now we can have a little bit more of expressive control and something more expressive and punchy when it comes to the music. Getting kind of groovy. Now we can add some chords and back arrangements, and we can start playing with this more and more to really expand our music or decrease it based on what we want to achieve, and we will be playing with this much more in depth. Idea here is that our characters move much faster and hit much harder the more fun music is playing. This sounds way better to me than any sort of a pop-up trigger animation that says boost. We can also have the traditional score system where we do evaluate the numbers and how players are doing, but we just don't show anything to the player. Maybe in the future, for example, as an achievement or as a speedrunning technique or something like this, we will add this, but as a base game, we're not going to show anything to the player. The last piece of a puzzle for today is a balance between active and passive. I mean, yeah, it's fun to play with the ambience and allow for the players to really have interactions with it. But in order for music to really be engaging, we need more direct interactions with it. And this means that we want to attach essentially controls and what we're actually doing with specific musical triggers. I was thinking about this part for a while, and I'm not sure if I found the best possible solution, but let's go through some story. It's from the song I like. Two thieves just did their thing and currently sharing the money. They almost shared everything evenly, but there's a question of a last coin. The characters make their argument why they deserve it more, but they end up starting to fight over it. The world reacts to what the characters are doing and ended up taking all the money by itself, and the characters have to run away. I'm not planning to have any sort of undead forces in my world, but the rest lands extremely well with both fighting mechanics and the music. So let's try to discuss how do we lay everything with the music. One of the complications when dealing with the actual songs is the fact that we only have so many verses and player can essentially spend indefinite amount of time making a decision in a turn-based game. So we really need to figure out how to manage our verses. And I think this storyboard really helps us to figure out one of the approaches here. Let's get back to storyboard. We can start playing a song, and the introduction to the fight will be essentially the first verse, when the characters are discussing how important they were for the mission and why they're supposed to take the money. And when it comes to the animation, it's essentially pre-fight animations that we're dealing with. As things are starting to heaten up, now we are dealing with these coins that we are really targeting. So we start to accelerate everything. So there is this ghost-like presence, or whatever we decide to do starts to go on, and the impact starts. And at this point, when it comes to the music, we only play the turnaround kind of a melody. You can think when you're going to the live performance and performer actually want to speak with audience, there will be like some sort of a music that is still going on. And this music is in line with the song. So this is what we are going to do music-wise. So we will be changing this intensity, but we will have essentially riffs. And as the characters are going to reach these coins that they're fighting, or based on whoever is reaching, we can play a different verse. And whoever's getting better at verses essentially is going to be winning the fight. So this can be one of the ways to manage really the story and the songs and really blend this all together as a single unit. So as you're progressing in your battle, or as you're progressing into getting those coins, then you can have more verses, and the trigger is picking up the coin. Final piece is the way character move during the battle. In my battle scheme, all the characters will have the energy level for their turn. And as you're moving or performing any sort of action, you essentially lose a part of this energy bar. And as you're out, you have to end your turn. And the part of the music will have this quick time events essentially, where you have to choose either to mash these keys, which kind of gonna be simulating the character dancing, and you will have to spend the action economy as you pressing it, right? But if you keep pressing it very well, you will have your bonuses. Or if you're not gonna be pressing it, someone else gonna have them and you're not gonna have them. Or even potentially gonna have your punishments. This way we can have even more complexity, but it's very important not to overuse it and not to be annoying to the player when we're gonna use this. So we're gonna play with that and we're gonna find the balance. This essentially is the easiest part of the game because it rhythm-based challenges, which is very well researched since arcade games. And even now all these machine games that I cannot even play properly exist, so we will not be doing it way too complicated. The idea here is to really add a little bit of a flavor to our RPG movement. And I think this is enough for now. It's quite a bit of complexity. There are different pieces that we discussed. There is this source of a music that comes out from the nature and the world itself and facilitated, but potentially some sort of a spirit and ghost creatures that will be maybe a representation of the character's feeling. So when we are talking about this ghost like things, it does not mean that we will have a ghost in our actual world. It's just something that will be presented to the player and will be serving as a markers for the world. So we will have those ghosts, they will be showing what is going on, how intense, etc. But they don't actually exist. It's what the characters feel. And based on what type of a characters we have, we may also have the different types of representations because different proficiency. And if someone is essentially a mage, they will be able to tell you much more about those ghost-like features and creatures. So, do you know any sort of a rhythm-based challenges in RPG games? Have you ever heard about something similar? I was trying to look for it. I did not find anything precise, but it would be great to know if there is some ideas or proof of concept that exist. I think it's very interesting and much more creative way to play the game and design the game. So let's see if we can all become musician. Music. Yeah. Cheers.